varying offices. Some folks were elected to the state committee, which is the official state party for the District of Columbia. Were elected either on the ballot. So a lot of folks went out and ran along with other council members and the like, and got elected to the state committee. Our national committee folks, national committee man, national committee woman. Jack Evans is our national committee man. Our national committee woman is
Sylvia Martin.
Sylvia
Sylvia Martin.
And Lindy, Vice President.
Yeah. We have, the city, as you know, is set up into 8 political districts called wards. So each of those wards also have folks who ran within their ward to be the Ward 6, Ward 7, Ward 8 committee person, man or woman, as well as other folks who are the ward, those are the ward elected and citywide elected folks. If you are a ward chair, you have an automatic membership into the Democratic State Committee. So the ward organizations, as I mentioned, Ward 6 Democrats, Ward 1 Democrats, Ward 7 Democrats have a chair. Those chairs have an automatic seat on the state committee. And then the state committee also, through its own function, can select folks to be add-on members to the state committee. So that comprises the whole body. I bring that up because that body also has a certain number of delegates that they can select within each other, within the body, to also be a delegate to the convention. The last category of delegates are what we call PLEOs, public leaders and elected officials. And they get automatic bids, if you will, to the convention. So that would be our delegate to Congress, Delegate Norton. That would be the mayor of the District of Columbia, who now is Mayor Muriel Bowser. That will be the chairman of the city council and other high elected officials who all, according to DNC rules, are looked at equal levels. So, with all of those different types of folks, where do you guys fit in? Well, we have 11 delegate slots open for the general public, to which you guys are here to be trained on. We will be selecting, or the people will be selecting 6 men, 5 women, and 1 alternate. Every 4 years, we always have to have party balance. We have to have gender balance. So the last convention, we had 6 women, 5 men, and 1 male alternate. So it's the flip this time. Also, all of our delegates have to meet what's called our diversity or inclusion standards. So to the extent that we can, we try to have a representation of the district population in our delegate corps. So that includes district level delegates, at-large delegates, and the PLEO delegates. I'm going to use abbreviations. So please, if I say anything that's confusing, interrupt me at any time. With that, we have a certain percentage of African Americans that we should have. We don't have to have, but we should have. We've pretty much satisfied our gender requirements by the way that we've selected and we've carved out our delegate number. We have to have a certain amount of youth. We have to have a certain amount of senior citizens. We have to have a certain amount of LGBTQ+. We have to have a certain amount of ethnics, African Americans, and so on and so forth. And if you remember earlier, I was talking about the Democratic constituencies. This is one way that the party ensures that all of those constituencies have a voice and have a say-so in the election of, in the nomination of the Democratic presidential nominee. Also, as part of the convention, as most of you know, the party will select or will develop its platform. So this is another way for folks to get involved in the process to help determine Democratic platform. So that's just a high-level overview of who the delegates are, what they are. I'm sure most of you have gone to our website, dcdemocraticparty.org, and on there you will find our delegate selection plan. So I don't know, has anyone actually declared their candidacy, filed any paperwork yet? You have. You're the one that sent the email earlier.
Yeah,
Okay.
you need to finish your form.
Understood. Gotcha. I invite all of you, and even while you're here, as I'm talking, to visit our website and review the delegate selection plan. That has all of the information that you really will need on one, how we're supposed to conduct the delegate selection, responsibilities of the delegate, responsibilities of presidential candidates, which we'll go through on a high level, and what happens in between, because it can get kind of hanky if you're not fully aware of what happens. So, you go onto our website, you're interested in being a delegate. I'm assuming everyone here wants to be a delegate. Go onto our website, like I said, dcdemocraticparty.org, and fill out the application. It's a very, I think you can attest to it, it's a very simple application. Basically, you certify that you're a Democrat, number one, your biographical information, your demographic information, who you are deciding to support as a candidate, which is critically important. So, right now, the field is, I think, 11. We get some in and we get some out. But in the District of Columbia, after we have our primary election on June 6th, we will, in order to receive delegates for the convention, a candidate has to reach 15% of the vote total to get a certain number of delegates. And above that, there will be a proportional breakdown of the number of delegates awarded to a particular presidential candidate. So choose wisely. So again, 15% is the key number. Anything above 15%, then it becomes a proportional slotting of our delegates. But getting back to the application, it's very easy. You know, this is not your driver's license application. This is not applying for a mortgage. It's basically, like I mentioned, who are you supporting? Who are you? Where do you live? Where you live is important because it will determine your congressional district. Though the District of Columbia has no representation, we have split our delegates into, or we've split the city into 2 congressional districts, to which half of the delegates will be awarded from Congressional District 1, which is wards 1, 3, 4, and I believe 6. And then the other half of delegates.
I think 1, 2, 6, 8.
1, 2, 6, 8. Thank you so much there.
2 is 3, 4, 5,
5, and 7. So all of our delegates are slotted into those. Use this. Thank you. So in District 1, we'll have 3 male delegates who will be elected at our convention, and 3 female delegates. In District 2, so if you're in wards 3, 4, 5, or 7, we'll have 3 female delegates. 3 male delegates on the ballot, but only 2 female delegates, and then 1 alternate, which will be a female, which also comes from District 2. That's important because, again, everything is done by vote totals. So if your particular candidate doesn't get the right vote total, but is close enough, so let's say, and this is just for argument's sake, Biden only gets 15% of the available delegates, and you, as a Biden representative, come in 3rd. Well, and you're from District 2. Well, only 2 of those folks, the highest 2 vote getters, will be selected to be a Biden delegate, if that makes sense. However, that 3rd person can, if they choose to, which is on the application form. There's a little confusion on the application form, so we'll tighten up the language. But it will ask you whether or not you want to be considered to be an alternate. So an alternate serves, as the name sounds, if a delegate for whatever purpose cannot fulfill their obligations as a district level delegate, then we will substitute that person in as the rightful delegate, and the other person will, the next person below the person who got moved up from alternate to rightful delegate, so on and so forth. So the 4th highest vote getter in this example that I'm using will now become the alternate, if that makes sense. So, and if I'm confusing anybody or if I'm boring anybody, let me know. we can change things up. So any questions on the application? I know.
So saying you're an alternate is basically saying you're willing to vote for somebody who is not your primary choice?
No, it's all still tied to your primary choice.
Okay.
It's all still tied to your primary choice. So you would be an alternate for Biden, or you would be an alternate for Buttigieg.
So you gotta be at the conference, but you just aren't a delegate unless somebody gets sick or something, right?
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. So how we, but if everybody is declared candidate, how do we decide like who the alternate is declared for?
In your application, you've already declared.
Right, no, I'll ask at the end if it's your question. No, so I guess my question is, if we're bringing X amount of people and we have an alternate delegate, the alternate is there stepping if somebody's sick, but we don't know if it's gonna be a Bernie delegate or a Warren delegate who's gonna get sick, so how does that alternate work?
Because we'll know by our vote totals. So we'll know, after the primary election in June, how many delegates, who gets to go. So you may be a Buttigieg supporter. You're the #1 vote getter, in our delegate selection election. Charles is a Biden supporter. He's the #2 vote getter for in our delegate selection election. We have our primary, our June primary, to select who we want as a people, as a city, who we want to be president of the United States. If a person doesn't hit the 15% threshold, they will not be awarded any delegates. So it's a tier down from there. So let's assume that Biden gets 50% of the vote, so he'll get 50% of the delegates. You're a Buttigieg supporter, and I'm just throwing this on you, not saying that you are.
That's all right, you've changed it 3 times.
And you get 16% of the support. So there will be a proportional awarding of delegates to each of those candidates based off of the folks, #1, who said that they support this particular candidate.
Right, I think I follow up until that
Okay.
point, it's the alternate part that I'm not.
So if you are #4, so let's say that Biden is awarded 3 delegates, and you're the 4th highest vote getter.
So is there a Biden alternate and let's say a
The Buttigieg
Buttigieg alternate?
yes.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yes.
Because
So-
it says choosing one alternate here, but there's actually an alternate for every candidate.
There's an alternate for every candidate that who you've declared for.
Got it.
So when we get all of so let me step forward a little bit too to kind of give some clarity into this. So the presidential candidates have, and I'm going to jump way ahead in the presentation, have what's called a candidate right to review. So on probably March 26th, March 27th, we will send to every presidential candidate. These are the folks who've said that they have declared their support for you in this primary election. Do you approve? Do you disapprove? We're going to work on the assumption that they approve, because there's something hanky happens when they disapprove. So they send back to us that list to say, yes, I approve Eric Rogers to be my delegate representative to the convention. I move forward then to our state convention. We have the election. We get a vote count. I'll know all of the folks who won that election. When the primary happens, then from there we'll tear it down. So again, if we have 11 delegates, we'll say Biden gets 50%. He should be entitled to 5 delegates. So the top 5 vote getters will go, who are in the Biden camp, will go to Biden. That 6th person will be the alternate to Biden. Similarly, we'll stick with Buttigieg, so we'll say he gets 15% of the vote. So doing quick math, we'll just say it's 2 people to make the math easy. So he'll get awarded his 2 top vote getters plus 1 alternate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you don't win in April, you make it to the next round.
They make it to the next round.
Yeah.
But coming back to the presidential right to review, because that's a significant, it's significant. If folks will recall, back in 2016, there was controversy over the delegate selection process. There was controversy over Hillary Clinton's ability to substitute in and substitute out delegates that were more favorable to her. When you're running in this process, there is always that risk. That is why the presidential candidates have the right to review. What the DNC tried to do this year in the process is keep it as open as possible for individuals to participate in the process. However, there is the likelihood or chance that someone who won and rightfully should go gets substituted out because the presidential candidate feels that Eric Rogers is a stronger supporter. I can depend on Eric. I love Eric. Eric gave me $1 million, whatever. And I want him to be my delegate, if that makes sense to folks. So I want to be upfront with folks that as you go through this process and as you interact with, advise folks to do with the respective presidential campaigns to make yourself known. So that's part of the campaign beyond just getting the votes at our state convention to become a delegate. It's also making yourself known to the presidential candidates, and they all have a local or a state representative that you can contact to say, hey, I'm Eric Rogers, I'm a Biden lover, where's my yard sign, I need some posters. Oh, by the way, I'm running for delegate to Biden, so what is your internal vetting process and the like. I was going to mention it a little bit later in the presentation, but I wanted folks to understand that because it can be kind of disconcerting that you've gone through this whole process, you're ready to participate in democracy, and democracy fails you.
So you would know, so before you waste your time running in April, you would already know that they didn't want you in March.
That's what we're planning on doing.
Okay.
So, like I said, so the declaration of candidacy is due March 21st to us. We have orchestrated it between the chair and myself and the DNC to get folks, the presidential candidates, all the information that they need so they can make their decisions earlier. They have until April 20th to actually send information back to us as per the plan right now. We may amend it, and that's why let me step back, I know I keep jumping. Let me step back too. Always for the next, as you're going through this process, keep referring back to the delegate selection plan. We've gotten actually comments as late as today from the DNC asking us to alter aspects of the plan to conform to some changes in the DNC rules and regulations. So always refer back to our website to look for the latest delegate selection plan, so that way that you know that you are up to speed. Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to say I pinned the links to the handout in the presentation in the Facebook Live feed.
Okay.
So it's on our Facebook page, DC Democratic Party, if anybody wants to look at the presentation.
So DCDemocraticParty.org presentation. It's a very basic presentation. So, but it'll guide you through step by step. Again, it's very, very, very basic information. Because most of the information that you need is what we capture on the application, but on the declaration of candidacy. So, someone, yeah.
I have a question. If you fill out the form and your candidate drops out before March and you still love the whole field and very much want to beat Trump, are you able to alter who you are running for?
As long as you do it before March 21st. So, if you were a Harris supporter like I was, well, I can't be a Harris delegate, so I can find somebody else. But yes, but as long as you do it before March 21st. Yes, ma'am.
So in the delegate plan, it talks about uncommitted status when you fill out the form. Can you talk about that a little bit and what the implications are?
So uncommitted status is you want to be a delegate, but you are uncommitted. You don't know who you want to support. And what we will do is send your name to, you file uncommitted, we have our election, we send to the presidential candidates, here are all the folks who have committed to you, here are the folks who have not committed, but who potentially could be a delegate for you depending on how things go. You may know a presidential candidate or someone in their campaigns and they told you to be uncommitted because they want to pull you in for something else. Presidential politics, as I'm learning through this process, is very crafty. So things are not as straightforward as you think they should be, as say running for political office, local political office. You know what you have to do, you know when you have to do it, you know how much money you need to raise, and you know when the primary is. Well, in presidential politics, as I'm learning, things are fungible. So for the moment, and that's why I say please check in on our website to look at the latest plan, because we will alter the plan to talk about any significant changes to the process. But as it stands now, that's the plan for uncommitteds. Yes.
So I have like 4 questions.
That's fine.
So first is, if you're running a specific ward, do the votes count, like, is it district-wide, or is it just ward specifically?
So it'll be congressional districts, so you'll really be
Okay,
pulling
district
from
1 and
4
district
people,
2. Okay.
4 wards.
Okay. And if you meet like a certain representation goal, does that like help in your election at all, or not
Now
necessarily?
that's part of campaigning.
Right.
So if say, a black male, which is part of the one of the main constituency groups. So as I'm going out to talk to folks to say, hey, I support Harris, and Black Men for Harris, that's my shtick, if you will, to get folks to come and vote with me. Now, again, when we go through, find out all of who's declared, kind of do a matrix of all of the demographic information on that. We'll send all of that to the presidential candidates. Again, we're not under an obligation to meet the numbers of our affirmative action plan, but to the extent that we can, we will. One of the changes actually that we got today, the section of the delegate selection plan that we had to remove, actually deals with affirmative action, the affirmative action plan. And if I'm sorry if I didn't mention it, the affirmative action and inclusion plan is the official plan of the Democratic State Committee on how we're going to meet these targets, how we're going to meet these goals. Forums, meet and greets, knocking on doors, whatever we're going to do to try to get participation from all those respective groups. Well, today, the DNC sent us some notes saying, hey, you need to remove this section from the presidential right to review. So under the presidential right to review section, the candidates had an obligation to try to adhere to our affirmative action plan. So if I send them a list of 100 delegates, in theory, half should be black, half should be, or not half should be black, half should be women, half should be, or a quarter should be black, 15% should be youth, so on and so forth. Well, that section was removed, so they no longer have that obligation. We still have the obligation to try to outreach to everyone to get black men, black women, white women, so on and so forth, all in to participate in the process. As I read through some of the changes, I infer that we are working towards the goal, but the goal is not exclusive, if that makes sense, that we don't have to meet the goal. We need to do everything that we can to ensure participation, but at the end of the day, if the delegates don't reflect the demographic makeup in some form or fashion of the District of Columbia, no harm, no foul, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So generally, how difficult are the elections? Are they like super cutthroat, or is it just like?
To be honest with you, you would be
You're running against a lot of people.
a lot of
Oh,
people.
really?
You're just running against people who've never done anything, who show up
Yeah.
that day and run.
Yeah.
You're running against people who are very active.
Mm-hmm.
I went to vote 4 years ago, and I just know it was a lot of people spread out to the convention center. Here's my flyer. You don't know these people from Adam. Here, vote for me, and if you want to stop and hear what they have to say. I knew Charles was one person I was going to support. So I knew I was down on the mission, Linda, so I knew I was there. But it is a lot of people running for 11 seats.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of folks form slates,
Yeah, the slates.
so
Support Hillary or whatever it is she had.
So it might be District 1, we're the, everybody for Hillary slate or everybody for Kamala slate. Some folks did it individually. Some folks took it as a true campaign and, from the day that they put their declaration of candidacy in, went door to door, started knocking on doors, because at the end of the day, you're still trying to appeal to Democratic voters.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do our job as a party, when we have our convention, our state convention, if we do it well, we can get 5,000 Democrats to come to the convention. or we can get 500 folks to come to the convention, and that's where everyone in here comes into play too, because as part of your campaigning, you generate the energy, you generate the
You get
excitement.
people, your friends and family and folks you know, to go down on a Saturday to the convention center.
So anybody can go.
Right.
Any Democrat,
Any-
anyone
any
can
registered
go,
Democrat can
but to vote and participate, any Democrat.
It's not your neighborhood polling site, it's
Yeah.
the convention center.
It'll be as good.
That's all the voting takes place there at the convention center.
Yeah.
For this selection process. So we're doing two things concurrently. So we, as a state party, have to have, for district level delegates, an election. You know, allow the people, the Democratic voters to select certain people. We've decided as a party to coincide that election with a state convention, where we hopefully will develop our local party platform and the like, so that when we go to Milwaukee, you know, we are speaking in one accord. We all know from where we're coming from because we've had a convention, our own convention, to determine our platform, do our delegate selection, and other fun things, which I can't quite say yet until we get it.
Actually, I think Mama had a question first, if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
So, never having even observed this process, but listening carefully to what you both said about how you know, the amount of people who are running, it sounds like being an uncommitted delegate is something that you would not want to do.
Not necessarily. So, you know, we have a very diverse Democratic field, and there may come, when we have our convention, which will be in April, be a little bit past Super Tuesday, so we may, you know, 2 or 3 candidates may drop out, but you still may have a good 6, 7, 8 candidates in who have a solid chance at the nomination. So depending on how you play the math, you know, the uncommitted one might be that might be the slot that we need based off of how things break down, you know. So it's a political game. I hate to say it that way, but it's a political game, you know. So, you know, if you feel that you have a better shot at getting to be a delegate by being uncommitted, go for it, versus declaring for a particular candidate.
So then, why wouldn't people just look at the polling in DC and just choose whoever is the front runner in DC? Why wouldn't you do that and then run on a slate?
You can. Now, there's nothing stopping anyone from doing any number of constructions to get to that process. But at the end of the day, you know, everything will be determined on primary day, DC primary day, number one. So what you're doing is you're running as committed or uncommitted. You get a certain number of votes, you're in the top 11. So now you know that you have the opportunity to be a delegate, if that makes sense. Now, after the primary will truly determine whether or not your candidacy and your win is assuming that you're committed, whether or not you will be a delegate. So like I said, I was a Harris supporter. So let's just assume we've already had the election, or our delegate selection election, and I won. And I was the #1 vote getter for Harris. Well, she dropped out. So now I can't, because, you know, we've passed the filing deadlines and so on and so forth. So I'm done. I cannot be a delegate now. However, had I been uncommitted and just a very, very good campaigner, now I still am in the running. So, because when we send that list to the presidential candidates, they may say, oh yeah, I know Eric Rogers, I like him. I know he's uncommitted, let me call him, and I'll make sure that he supports me, and then fill out the pledge form, and then I become pledged to whoever the presidential candidate is. So, a lot of it is, you know, the science of politics and politicking, and a lot of it is sheer luck on who you choose to support. If that makes sense, if that answers your question. Yes.
Thank you. So I have 2 questions. The first is, so you have to be a registered Democrat.
Yes.
To vote. Do you know off the top of your head what the deadline is to register or to change your party affiliation?
At any time, up to March 21st at 11:59. So as long as you're a Democrat by then, you're good to go. Now, you have to vote in the primary, you have to have registered, 30 days prior, and change your party affiliation 30 days prior, I believe, to the primary election. However, in the District of Columbia, you can change your affiliation day of voting, and you will get a provisional ballot or a special ballot. Need to check on that. It might not necessarily be day of, or because you can register to vote the same day and vote. So,
Thank you. And my second question is, I would love to hear a little bit more about the slate versus unslated candidates. So if the slate wins, are they, like, let's say it's 3 people to a slate, are they then 1, 2, and 3, and then let's say an individual wins 4th place? Like,
well, the slate is more of a method of running. So each person is still, you're all on the slate,
Okay.
but each one still needs a vote.
I see, okay.
So,
You're just like campaigning together.
you're
Helping
campaigning
sharing
together,
costs.
sharing costs, sharing resources, sharing outreach. It's a political strategy.
Okay.
Because you may have a sitting city council member, for whatever reason, they want to run as a district-wide delegate. And it's like, come on, I want you, let's run on this slate. I'm going to show you how it's done. You can do it that way. Or some of your good friends, you guys might decide that, let's just give it a go. Let's just give it a go. We meet all the demographic things, so we have a black woman, we have a black man, a white woman, a white man, an Asian woman, an Asian man, Latino, LGBTQX, all of those different demographics. That might be the strategy that you employ. It really is as individual as a person and their campaign style.
Thank you.
But it does save you some money, so you don't have to print out all your cards yourself. Any other questions before I move on?
Oh, well, that was 20.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
first, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, public leaders, you mentioned Norman Bowser, Phil Mickelson. Does that include Carl Racine? And what about the Democratic members of the council?
So the Democratic members of the council, the mayor of the District of Columbia, the delegate Norton, our district delegate. So the way that the delegate selection plan reads, the automatic folks are, if you just happen to be in that jurisdiction, Democratic president, Democratic vice president, Democratic senator, Democratic member of House, representative to the House, and on down. Big city mayors, county commissioners, and other folks like that are considered statewide officials, so they're up there at the top. We would include Carl Racine, since he is a citywide office holder. We would include all of the at-large members because they're citywide office holders, and then tier down to the Democratic ward members. Does that make sense?
Yes, so you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Trayon White would be considered a public leader? Okay, thank you.
So we don't have to run against any members of city council?
No. So, could you pull up, go back to plan real quick. So yes, in answering your question, yes. But I'm just gonna read you when I get to it. See, that's where it gets into. So the state committee has a search number, but then if we have too many PLP. So, and this is where things get screwy, if you will, and how things kind of went in 2016. So what I'm telling you is the model. This is the perfect world. This is how things should be. Well, we have, like we said, we only are allotted 43 delegates. So that's our 11 district-wide delegates. So 11 district-wide delegates are elected officials, as well as the state party delegates where we get to select some. So out of all of those, we, the District of Columbia, have to separate it out how we're gonna do this. So that's how we came up with this. A little bit further.
Other one?
Yeah, that way. Cleo's should be the next one. Then Cleo's automatic delegates. So the automatic party leaders and elected officials, public leaders, and elected officials, they fall in this category. So members of the Democratic National Committee who legally reside in the state. So if there is a DNC member, which are National Committee Man, National Committee Woman, who are members of the DNC, they are automatic leaders and get an automatic delegate. They're automatic delegates. Okay?
Okay.
So members of the DNC, Democratic president or vice president, if applicable. It's not applicable to us right now, but they would have an automatic seat at the table, if you will.
Do they count towards the 43?
They do. That's where it gets handy. All the District of Columbia's Democratic members of the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. We have no senatorial representation. We only have our non-voting delegate. So she gets an automatic seat. The Democratic governor, which we don't have, but our mayor serves as the governor. And then
She gets a seat.
so she gets a seat. And then district distinguished party leaders who reside in the state. And this is where it gets funky, especially for the District of Columbia. So a distinguished party leader could be a former president, a former senator. It could be, I'm trying to think of someone who would be really, that captures the essence of it.
Like could Barack Obama.
It could be, you know, he already got his tickets, you know, so, you know, he can just walk on in, you know, just mark them, you know, it doesn't even matter.
But technically, if he wanted to be an
Technically, if he wanted.
Anybody that lives in the city that was
Because he
once
does live in Calorama, and if he claims this is his legal
It narrows
residency,
down to very few seats.
so, and that's why I was explaining.
That's for DC, right? Like-
Well, in DC, it just makes it even worse, because we are DC and everyone either lived here at some point in time, or lived
It's like Howard
here.
Dean lived here, right? He could.
That's a
be
good
in it.
example, Howard Dean. So
That's
let's
what
assume
that-
for whatever reason, he became a lobbyist and had to move down here, and he said, you know what, forget Vermont, and DC is my official residence. Well, he's a distinguished party leader, and he kind of would trump some of the lower level delegates.
Is it ever gonna get to the point where these 11 people don't actually get to go if we have too many people like that?
There is the potential for that to happen.
Has it happened in the past?
It happened in 2016,
That's
which I
okay.
was referencing, where folks did a lot of work to become delegates, and the Clinton campaign said, nope, 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 maybe, nope, 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 and maybe.
Who are they picking? Big donors?
Friends, you know, so that's why I wanted to be very upfront with you guys, you know, in the beginning, to let you know that you're going through this process,
Can they do
you're
this in
running,
any
you.
state or just DC?
It's not just DC, it's all over.
Theoretically competing with Obama.
Because, you know,
With those checkbooks
I mean,
out.
at the end of the day, you know, it's almost like herding cats, if you will, but the presidential candidates need to ensure that they have their vote count, that they have their numbers. And though I've signed a pledge form, and certain states, once you sign that pledge form, you are bound by law. In the District of Columbia, you're not. So in certain jurisdictions, they don't have to worry about it as they do as others, where it's good faith. You get to the convention, we all know what we're supposed to do, and you know, all of a sudden you had a wonderful night the night before, and you forget who you're supposed to vote for, you vote for the wrong person. Well, you know, you may have cost that presidential candidate the election, you know, the nomination. So, like I said, this is politics. This isn't like running for, you know, a regular ANC or city council where the rules are set, what you have to do are set, and everything is set. This is fungible. You know, so I wanted to give folks that impression. Not that it's anything that you can't do. It's not that it's anything anything ill is gonna happen to you. But I do want you to be very aware that it's a different type of election. And no matter, you can come out with 10,000 votes and become someone's delegate, and still not get to go to the party. Yes.
You mentioned a couple of times platform development
Mhm.
at the convention. Is that an open process, or do you also have to run to be a delegate, to be part of the platform committee?
There are two, I was referencing two things, probably inartfully. So at our local convention, when we'll also have the delegate selection, we will be coming up with the city's democratic platform. So a lot of the things that will be impacting our local races and also stuff that we will take to Milwaukee. As part of being a delegate is also the party platform. So, you know, there are various, so we, the District of Columbia, have a certain number of slots on various committees. One of the committees is the platform committee that sits and debates and argues and figures out the Democratic Party platform. So we will have a small say-so, as small as any other state in that process. And assuming that you become a delegate to the convention, there is a chance that you could be our party's nominee to the party platform committee. So for the district, if I remember correctly, we pretty much get one seat on all the major committees that come from our delegate core.
How many committees are there? How many committees?
There probably, if I'm, don't hold me to it, and I'll make sure that we send out but about 10. You know, some range from fundraising, finance, platform, the rules committee, you know, the rules of the convention, what we're gonna do. Man, I had it all in my head to answer the question. But what we can do is we can put that on our website so folks can see the mechanics of the actual convention, what happens. A little bit of it is in our delegate selection plan as it relates to responsibilities of the delegates. But there's a lot more that happens at the convention outside of just what the delegates do.
I got a quick
Go
one.
ahead, bro.
Can this process get kind of ridiculous? Let me explain.
Reasonable question.
Is there a chance that it could get to a point where you have to have, I'll say, a black female LGBTQ who happens to be crippled in order to be a delegate?
It could get that way. I don't think it will, based off of the latest guidance that we've gotten, like I said, from the DNC and how they've asked us to remove certain things from our plan, which kind of reaffirm those affirmative action goals. There seems to be a movement afoot at the DNC level to relax some of those standards. But it very well could happen that, you know, we're too heavy over here, and we do need, you know, the demography that you mentioned. We need that, and we may ask, okay, you need to come here, and we're going to put you there. It could happen. I'm not going to say that it will happen, but it could happen. Because again, keep in mind, this is not like a typical election where you come in, you put your name in, you raise your money, you know your name's on the ballot, if you get your signatures, and if you the highest vote total vote getter, you know you have the seat. This is not like that. This is a different type of politics. This is a different type of game where we want to get to the point where, all right, we got the presidential nominee and then boom. But this is a different type of game. So yes, there is the chance that you can get bumped. That's a better way of saying get bumped. Just like when you're on an airline, you bought your seat, you got it reserved, they overbooked, I get bumped. I heard than you and then you.
Generally, how big are the election turnouts? Because, I mean, I think it's a small election, people don't know that much about.
The last one that I went to at the convention center that I helped to put on, I think we had about 800-900 people show up, cycle through the full day.
That was 2016?
2016.
But I meant like the election, not like the.
Oh, the presidential election?
So I mean like the delegate vote.
Yeah.
Like
800 people,
Like
okay.
900 people.
Yeah.
But it may be more this year because we're doing a convention.
And that's part of the reason why.
First time we had a convention in 20, 30 years.
20 years.
And we thought by doing it that same day, it'll get people out.
Mm-hmm.
We'll hope. So,
So turnout partly is on us, the Democratic Party, to advertise and get folks excited about the election and come on out and participate.
So I'm just curious, I know there was a discussion about when to hold the primary. the presidential primary here in DC, and I'm wondering why you wouldn't have the DC convention after the primary?
Because
Ideally, is that what you wanna do? It's just that this year there was a debate about when to hold a primary.
Because, well, don't forget, one, our primary is June, early June. The Democratic National Convention is in August. Is in July. So there would not be enough time. Well, one, we have obligations to, let me step back. Are you just asking about the convention or the delegate election and the convention?
I'm asking about if you're making the point that this is a very uncertain process, and I'm wondering if the uncertainty of people being bumped off is heightened by the timing of the presidential primary.
The uncertainty is the uncertainty of presidential politics and what the candidate wants and who the candidate wants to be their delegates. And to the extent that the DNC is being fair, open, and transparent, they've allowed jurisdictions a certain number of delegates that can be elected amongst the people. But at the end of the day, it is the presidential candidates who ultimately determine who will be the delegate that will represent me. The party, to try to mitigate a lot of the issues that happened in 2016's convention, national convention, came up with an approach that was more fair, open, and transparent, a lot of which I've tried to describe today. But when I started this process a year ago in writing the delegate selection plan, a lot of the elements and ideas that we had have been altered as we've gone through this year. So what I'm trying to convey to folks is, just a realistic view of what may occur. It may not. We may have Democratic candidates we're going to stick with how it is, and we're just going to go that way. History shows me something different. So whenever I give this, I just want to, just be upfront with folks, and let them know. So having our local convention earlier or later really doesn't impact that. At the end of the day, it is a decision of the presidential candidate can say, no, the mayor of the District of Columbia, I don't want to be a delegate supporting me. It's rare that that happen. I don't see that happen. They could do that because they do have that right to review. She had one that's going to be.
So at the local convention, is the voting going to be like an open ballot, or where all the delegates are on there, or is it going to be caucus style, where all Hillary supporters?
Tell us how voting works.
Yeah, so it will be closed ballot, secret ballot. So with everyone's individual names. Now you may choose to run on a slate. Now we still have to figure this out. We may have all the slate members say, Eric, Charles, Monica, we're all in one slate, 1, 2, and 3. But still, each one has to have an individual vote. So you're voting for a slate, but you still have to mark each individual person. So there's the potential that even if you run on a slate, 3 of the slate members may win, you may lose.
Okay, and is it denoted who they're supporting?
You have the choice, so you can be committed or uncommitted.
Right.
So the slate may choose to have 4 committed and 1 uncommitted, or vice versa, based on the politics and based off how they think they can penetrate in and get enough votes.
But the ballot will say next to their name, Bernie supporter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
How many votes does a person get?
1 vote, one man, 1 vote.
So the whole list, you're a voter at the convention?
No, so I vote you. So me as a person, I can only vote for. So I get my ballot, and I get to vote as many times as I want on the ballot. Up to let me explain this a little bit better.
Like if my friend comes to the
Gotcha.
convention,
Gotcha.
what are they filling out?
I got you.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No. Because we have not developed the ballots yet. So let me get back to you on that. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll give you an answer on that because I don't want to tell you something that's wrong.
So my question was, I think there's probably more speculation this year than any other year before that this could end up being a brokered convention if things keep going as they
Please
do.
don't say that.
I know, but I think that raises the reasonable question is, if this is a brokered convention, does that mean it probably is really increasing the likelihood that these people are not gonna.
It depends. It really depends on the candidate. It depends on their philosophy.
Before we go, he asked, so a broker convention is when if no single candidate gets the majority of the electors at the convention, there are rules in place where it kind of becomes a free-for-all, and then uncommitted electors like us from DC get to vote for whoever we want as a second choice, basically, or stick with who you're with. So people in that case would really want somebody who they know is like undyingly faithful to them, because if it comes to that, it's going to be assumed. Yeah. Because of the size of the field this year, people are talking about the fact it might be more likely than.
Yes. Let me make sure.
My question, I just was asking, how many presidential candidates can we send? What if it's Bernie and Biden and Bernie, I guess, or Warren and Biden? Do we and it's close in our voting? Do we send both?
No, I think for a brokered convention we would.
Not the broker, for just like in general. I think that's what he's looking at.
Oh, that, gotcha.
Like if they both get over 50,
close to 50% of the
Yeah.
votes, for example.
They'd get
They
the
get a
proportion of
proportion.
delegates.
Yeah, they
They get
get
a proportion of
proportion.
delegates.
so both would go.
Yeah, you
get
send
the
one.
size of the delegates.
Both
You
will go,
send
but it's
all the delegates to get one.
as long as they're above 15%, and then we apportion out the delegates.
But I think by March, or at least I hope by March, more people have dropped out. I mean, I'm just being hopeful.
I mean, I'm probably well, yeah.
It depends how much money, I mean, it comes down to how much they can keep raising.
I think that raises, a fair question though, like if there's 11 delegates and it's, let's say it's 50% plus one, does that mean that person gets the 6 and the other person gets 5?
We're not the total delegates, it's 40
Yeah, don't
total.
forget.
Well, I'm just using a mathematical example because I don't want to divide by like 43 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But say your question one more time.
So is it like, let's say it's 50% plus one vote between two candidates and we have 11 delegates, which I know is not a real number. Like, does that, what are the threshold and percentage thresholds where you get like the 6 votes versus the 5 votes, for example?
Well, it'll have to be a mathematical equation.
Is that public, is there transparency on that?
It is straight math. So we know that at 15% you get at least one delegate. So depending on the number of folks in the race, if every, so let's say we have 7 folks in the race, so theoretically you can get, 6 of them can get 15% of the vote. So with that, assuming everybody being equal, each one would get a equal proportional representation of all of our delegates. So
Right.
whatever 15% of 43 would be.
I guess that's my
would be-
problem, is there is no 15% of
Then you-
43 is not an even
But you get, so you have to hit 15% of the total vote,
Okay.
period. So when we have our presidential primary in June, to be awarded delegates, you have to hit 15% of the vote. Once you hit 15% of the vote, then it's proportional. It's proportionate. So if 6 candidates get 15% of the vote, then each one gets a proportional share of that vote. So I would get 4 delegates, it would be 4, it'd be 8, 8, 8, 8, and 8. Someone may get 7, someone may get 9 to meet the
total number.
the total number.
Well, so that was what I was asking about. I don't wanna like get off track,
That's
so I
okay.
can save that question for you for the end.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm out campaigning and I'm trying to get people to come down to the convention
Mhm.
to vote for me, because they have to go down there to vote. So what is that experience gonna be like for them? Do they have to come and spend the whole day down there? Can they walk in for 15 minutes and vote?
Well, we hope they would
Walk out?
spend the whole day, because we're
Well,
having a whole convention.
Ideally, but I'm just, I'm trying to give people a show, so.
As long as they come in and
What's the
vote.
minimum they gotta do,
Yeah.
Just
to
come in and
vote?
vote.
And then if they wanna hang and enjoy the
So,
show.
yeah, so on that day, there'll be 2 things happening. So they'll have the convention, so speakers and platform development, and a whole lot of hobnobbing with Democrats and the election. So if they just wanna come in as soon as the polls open, come in, vote, and bounce.
Okay, so there's gonna be X number of hours that
Mhm.
the polls are open and they can come down and do that. If they choose to participate in the other activities, they can, but that's,
I think 8 to 7, but that's still, we haven't firmed that up yet. But yes, they can just come in, vote, and bounce. But we want them to stay, because
yeah, of course.
convention center's expensive, so they want to occupy.
Right, some people love it and some people think it's
Yeah.
much a paint dry, it's like,
Mr. Trust me, give me that.
Are there campaign finance laws that apply to running for delegate?
Yes,
Like,
I
does,
believe there are. I need to
are there
check that.
disclosures? Can I spend $7 million running for delegate? Like,
Let me
what?
check on that for you. Let me check on that for you. Logically, I would say yes, but I don't recall contribution limits. I don't recall seeing any of that. I know you don't have to file anything with Office of Campaign Finance, but let me verify for you. Because if you decide to take corporate contributions and stuff, how does that get reflected? You know, your office or your job, and they say, hey, you know, this is exciting for you, we love you, we know you're into politics, we'll spend $50 to help you get some some palm cards or something like that. Let me check that out for you.
Do you think you could post that response somewhere
Yes.
publicly, so
We'll put
I
it on
could
the
go-
website.
Okay,
So,
that's an interesting question.
so on our website, you know, there are three main, flip to it real quick so they can see. No, you had that.
Oh, I thought you wanted the, this, okay.
So, if folks can see, this is the front page of our website. So what we'll do is add another button right here with some of these FAQs, especially the campaign finance stuff. What happens if, you know, we have a broker convention, what's the likelihood and that type of stuff. So that to help folks kind of think through, you know, the process and stuff. So, she's taking good notes, I got a good memory, we have it, so we'll get that up in the next couple of days, so that way, folks have more questions. Any more questions? All right, so to recap, no one wants to be a delegate because it's too tough. No, I'm kidding. No, everyone should go through this process, even whether you win, whether you lose. The main point of this process is democratic based engagement, getting folks excited about this election, getting Trump out, and making sure that, you know, whoever our presidential nominee reflects the vision, views of all of us. And the only way that can happen is by you guys going out and saying, hey, I want to be a delegate to the convention because I believe this, and my guy, my gal believes this as well. And it's an opportunity for folks to, like I said, engage folks in presidential politics. In the city, you know, we're unique. You know, we don't have adequate federal representation, though we're the nation's capital, so we're at the seat of all this stuff. We see it every day. It's part of our lifestyle. So a lot of times folks kind of take it for granted. And since we're a primarily Democratic city, you know, we can get kind of sleepy-eyed when it comes to engaging in national politics. So as you're out there, you know, three things I can tell you that will probably help you win. Number one, you love whoever your candidate is. Just extol it. I just love them. And give three main reasons why you love your candidate. You know, because most folks, as much as we think that we're educated about the candidates, we don't know. So find three things that are sexy about the candidate, pardon the expression. That should help you. Number two, make sure that you campaign in your congressional district. So if you're in, you know, congressional district 1, look at those wards and try to campaign there. What we've tried to do as a party is mix rich wards and poor wards, predominantly black wards with predominantly white wards, so that folks can go all across the city and talk to every manner of folks in the city. So the more you do that, and the more that you can appeal to a cross section of the city, the more likely you'll probably win. And then the third thing, which I think is the biggest thing, is have fun. You know, whether you win, whether you lose, you know, have fun in engaging in this process, because you will be unique. Not many people run for delegate. Not many people actually may get elected to be a delegate. Not many people get to go to the convention as a delegate. So it's an exciting thing, and the more you exude that excitement, the more you engage voters, and the more, you engaged voters, obviously, the more likely you'll be able to get their vote.
Is the information available on the site, who else is running as delegate and who they're committed to?
No, we don't have that. So, and we probably won't have that. So this is you being a candidate.
So you don't know what you're up against. Interesting.
With the flyer,
I had a question about slates. So you mentioned slates might be listed together on the ballot. Do you get to name your slate, and is that going to be listed on the ballot with your name?
Usually they are. I just need to check with the party chair to see how we're going to do the ballots. But generally slates are, because that's how you've identified yourself. You've registered with us as a slate. But let me check with the party chair to ensure that if we're going to do it, that how to do it, and if we're not going to do it, put it out there that run on a slate. But each person will have their individual name on a ballot.
Did the form have a slate question?
I don't recall it. I think it was just committed, uncommitted, demographic info,
No.
So
where you live. No.
I think we would need more information on like how to let you all know if we're forming a slate.
So Erin,
Yes.
you wouldn't make the names of everybody who's declared public on March 22nd?
No, not then, because, and I really didn't get into it now, this will be my last point. Presidential right to review. I know I keep harping on it, and I keep talking about it and the like. So, March 21st is the date that declarations of candidacies are due. Within 5 business days or so, we've decided that we will send those to the presidential candidates for approval or disapproval. If they disapprove any person on anyone, we will notify that person in time to let you know that, hey, Biden said no, so you may want to, well, no, Biden said no, because we would be outside of the March 21st deadline, so you would not be able to refile for somebody else. But we'll put a pin in that, just in case. I'll talk with the party chair to see if some accommodation can be made within the plan to allow folks who were rejected by a presidential candidate to select another person. Don't hold me to it, but check on our website in the next week or so for a definitive answer on that. After the 25th, assuming that we get it back by, well, they have to get it to us by the election. We will probably revise that timetable to move it before the election so that we can notify folks, so that you're not out there campaigning, person sends it in on the 19th, you won, and then they say, no, we don't want you. That's unfair. So we will probably move that timetable up. So you will have notice on whether or not your candidate has selected you. Now, if you decide to be uncommitted, then you're okay, because you're uncommitted. Unless, a particular candidate has a grudge against you, and it's like, okay, well, you're off. So we will let you know all of that good stuff. Any other questions?
Did we figure out how many votes people get and how that works?
Yes, that's right, I was looking for it. Thank you for reminding me. And while I'm still looking that up, let me get yours.
2 questions. For future questions, are you the best person to contact? And if so, can we have an email address?
Yes.
You really didn't want to say yes.
Because in all honesty, I will be transitioning out of this job, but out of this capacity and moving into a more public capacity over the coming year. I'm going to be running for a particular office.
Right.
we'll vote for you. We'll vote for you.
Eric, can you tell us what you're
I know, right?
What are you running for? That'd be
Can you tell us what you're running for?
So I will be running for at-large.
Council?
Council.
Woo!
But I will have to renounce my Democratic affiliation. I'll be running as an independent. So I can't do Democratic stuff as an independent. So this is one of my last few endeavors as a party chair. So that's why I was hesitant on it. However, m.eric, E-R-I-C, .rogers, R-O-G-E-R-S, @gmail.com. If you have any questions, send me your stuff, and I'm not going to put you on little campaign emails either.
Could you repeat that, please?
Repeat that for us.
M as in Mary, Eric, E-R-I-C, .Rogers, R-O-G-E-R-S, @gmail.com. So send me any and all of your questions over the next, couple, 3-4 weeks or so. I'll answer them directly, or if I don't have the answer, I'll refer to Charles Wilson, who's the party chair, and we'll figure out between the two of us the right answer. Because again, a lot of this stuff is in flux. Our document, we thought we were done with it a year ago when we sent it to the DNC, and it just keeps evolving and it keeps evolving. So as a matter of fact, what I will do, Phoenix, everyone send me your email. I'm sure everyone signed in, but everyone send me an email, hey, I'm here. I'll create a listserv, if you will. So as things change, if the selection plan changes, as we get new information, I can push it out to, because it seems that you guys are very active and very interested in running. So I want to make sure that you're properly informed and properly trained, so you're not wasting your time. And then we can just add, Phoenix, we can just add to the list as folks truly express an interest in running. So that way we at least have a list as things change, because like I said, they change every couple, 3-4 days. You're well aware, and then we can add folks in as they express an interest. Presidential right to review, and I haven't forgotten about your question. I haven't forgotten about the questions. Presidential right to review. I do want to read to folks very briefly this little section, and then I will let you go, just so that again that you have a full understanding of what's going to happen to you. So, Section 3, presidential candidate right to review. The state Democratic chair shall convey to the presidential candidate or the candidate's authorized representative a list of all persons who have filed to that presidential candidate. Each presidential candidate or that candidate's authorized representatives must file with the state Democratic chair, that's Charles, such candidates they approve, as long as their approval is given to at least 2 names for every position to which the presidential candidate is entitled. So that again, that gets to the 15% in the number of delegates that you could potentially be awarded. And then we, as a party, have certain obligations to notify the DNC that this process is ongoing and so on and so forth. But this is Section 3B, page 13 of the delegate selection plan. So it's really a quick and easy read. So skim through it tonight. Send me some questions if you have any. Skim through it again tomorrow after you see my responses to the questions, and then things will be a little bit more clear. And then if you still have questions, you have my email, so please feel free to reach out to me. Go out and campaign, have fun, make us all proud Democrats, get the people to elect you. We're gonna try to get 10,000 people to the convention, so that way you got some folks to talk to, but we can use your help to do that. So we'll add you guys to our party email list, so that way you get other party information. But with that, I'm pretty much done with my little presentation. Again, I'm sorry for being long-winded, but hopefully it was informative, and if you got any questions, I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.